in. We got another episode. We on episode 21. Heating up. I can't believe we over 20. I can't believe we still doing this. Um, but I'm a host today, Sirod. I'm here with Stephen, Aubrey. Uh, all right, let's get into it. So the Kaepernick Muhammad Ali conversation that we had a couple episodes ago, I put up a poll. It wasn't many people got involved. I think it was like 7 or 8 people, but it was 50-50. And it kind of threw me off a little bit. I was shocked that that many people thought that, in my opinion, and I'll let these fellas talk in a little bit, that people believe that Muhammad Ali and his impact to society and what he was going through is equal, because that's what the question was, to what Kaepernick did when he kneeled and was speaking out against injustice and everything he's doing for society right now. I thought there was a clear distinction, but that's just my personal opinion. So it made me start thinking about some of the other stuff I see on social media that kind of gra- uh, gravitates toward that same mentality, and a lot of it is the Charlie Kirk's opinions, Candace Owens' opinions, without the facts. Because remember, when we talked about them, I was saying that they don't deep dive into it. So I'm going to deep dive into it. But what I do want to say is, like, I lean more conservative now, and the reason is because of the Charlie Kirks and Candace Owens type individuals and the stuff they say. I do believe that we give way too many excuses to particular populations. This episode will be kind of about Black people because we're three Black dudes, but I do believe that poor people can kind of gravitate in toward this conversation as well. So that's what I'll kind of focus on. But for Black individuals, what they don't deep dive into when they say all these stupid idiots on social media, they're like, "Tell me one thing a white person can do that I can't do." And that's such a stupid, idiotic statement because, first off, you're talking to children who haven't really looked into it. And even individuals like me who we just know it because we live it. But this is what I found. I already knew about the interviews. Individuals who are Black get less time during their interviews. Stuff that I looked at, though, I did know about appraisal because I'm a real estate agent. There was a couple in the Bay Area that got their house appraised. It was like $500,000 more, and then they knew it was more, so they got it reappraised, took down all the pictures of them, and put up a white family. I think one of their friends let them borrow their pictures, and the house was appraised for more. So we know that Black people get their houses appraised less. We know that their mortgage rates, even when the credit score and the annual income is similar, that their interest rates are higher, less likely to get business loans. I said the interviews, because of their name, on a resume, they're less likely to get that interview. So there's a bunch of stuff we can point to that I don't know. Like I said, I've never heard Charlie Kirk or the Candace Owens of the world or the conservative individuals on social media bring this up. And when these people say, "What can a Black person do that a white person can't do?" and all that, it's like it's not as simple as like, "Oh, well, I can go to this bathroom now, or I can drink out of this fountain." So, based off that information, I'll let you guys kind of jump in. But really, what my belief is that I want you guys to kind of counter argue is, I just think that we're still, even with that information, since we do know it. Why is there so many excuses within the poor community, but especially the Black community, on why we can't do things? I feel like if Kaepernick's kneeling for injustice, that's fine. But like, why are you having interactions with the law? Like I don't mean to just like jump on my community for that, but it's like they're like, "Oh, Black communities are over policed." I'm like, yeah, but I've been to Black communities. Steven, when we heard there was a party in Southeast, did we go? That's a question. Did we go?
Probably not.
Probably not. So what I'm saying is, like, to act like that's not a reality and keep giving excuses to that, I feel like it's a hindrance to the Black community and poor people. But what do you guys want to say about that intro?
You know, I think when I was in my 20s, um, yeah, maybe I was like, a little bit more scared to go to the hood, right? Like, oh man, like I don't want to go. But now, being older, knowing what I know now, I, I understand what has happened generationally throughout this country, and just the perception in the media, propaganda, and just the stats, right? And I think we always come at this conversation at the frame point of now, without understanding that when we did have Black communities like Black Wall Street, places in the South, places that built themselves up as Black only communities, right? And we're in Philadelphia, like a lot of these places, DC, a lot of these places, Chicago, all these places that we know as Black cities back then, because of how it was. And we weren't allowed, Black people weren't allowed to get loans, and they were tired of going through all the racial discrimination and housing and redlining and all this. So they just started to make their own communities. Well, then what happened to those communities, right? They became so influential, and they were making so much money. Black people were nowadays you think about what Black people, if you actually look at what some of the successful Black communities were, they were having some of the nicest suits, the nicest cars, stuff, some of the stuff that we would just be like, wow, like Black people were doing that back then. And then what happened? White people got mad, bombed cities, burned them down, took away everything that they built, and then say, all right, well, pick yourself back up by your bootstraps after we made you already do it all. And then so to me, it's really not a question of whether or not discrimination still exists. Well, that's that the numbers you just stated show that still today you're still going to be discriminated against based on race. The question really should be is how can we move through this in a way that Black people are not so combative against Black people? And I see that in our own community, that we're so distrusting of each other because we've allowed the perception of the Black community and not the real Black community of me being a Black person going into random places throughout this country and being able to interact and talk to other Black people in a way that you wouldn't think if you were like. A good example is I would go to, my mom lives in upstate New York. I would go there and I would go get my haircut in Albany, right? And being able to just go to a Black barbershop, right? I can't tell you the last time I've gone to a Black barbershop. I'm in North Dakota, right? Like to sit in a Black barbershop in a Black business and talk to people that come in. And I'm not saying that not everybody is, everybody, people are who they are, but the interactions you can have with people can really shape what your perspective is. And I think when we let anybody, whether it's conservatives or liberal, try to shape our opinions on people, and we don't go out and actually, talk to, hang around, be around, and do those things with our own community. I think if we're not engaged in it, then it's easy to understand that there are some issues. And I'm not saying there's not issues in the Black community, but there's issues in every community, right? Why is it that, the white community has a high rate of people that are arrested for child sex crimes, right? People probably say, oh, well, it's because they got more people. But let's keep it real. Like, there's just things that happen that we assume or we stereotype that they are these ways, but they might not be. And I'm not saying that the Black community is, I'm not here to just say, oh, yeah, it's all lies. But what I'm saying is we can pick and choose what we want to see. But I think what we need to do is really start connecting again and stop letting the media dictate to us who to find an enemy, whether it's based on race, immigration status, religion, whatever it is, and really just start trying to talk to people. Because the more I talk to people, the more I find out race really doesn't matter. I live in a very white state, and there's tons of people that believe exactly what I'm talking about. But it's the media that hypes them up when it comes to it. But then when you actually sit down and break bread and just laugh and talk about stuff, no one cares about it. We all care about our family and all care about wanting the best for our futures. And I think sometimes these talking points bring it to an area that just confines us in thinking more than expanding and letting us find common ground with others.
I 100% disagree with most of what you just said. I don't think one YN in Chicago wants to have a fucking conversation with me about nothing. I don't think one YN in Compton or Fresno or whatever borough in New York wants to have a conversation with me because we care about our family. Them motherfuckers is thugs. They beating the shit out of each other. How many people we know got jumped just for walking? You don't even get to have a conversation. You don't even get to tell them, I ain't a Crip, I ain't a Blood, I ain't a gang, I ain't a king. I just completely disagree with that. I don't know if it's propaganda because I see it every day and I know people who have been through it. And I think that's the problem. I don't think we say it. That's kind of why I want to have this podcast. I was like, I need to stop saying it in my head and just say it out loud. These people are pieces of shits. All these little pieces of shits running around our country with the same color skin as me, acting the way they're acting, are pieces of shits. And we need to start saying that more. And stop talking about how our buildings got burned down in the past and all that stuff. We're here today, and somebody needs to set these little fuckers straight. I mean, it ain't gonna be me. I live in a predominantly white neighborhood. Cause like I said, I ain't going to Southeast San Diego. I'm scared of these little motherfuckers. They was beating me up when I was fucking chasing me out of FanMart when I was 19. I ain't fighting six of them now. I'm gonna have to shoot them now. I'm going to court, like whatever. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm like, but more people in our community who are in positions like us need to start calling them out on it and stop giving them excuses on why they're in the situation they are. That's why I say I kind of disagree with everything you said.
So just to let all the listeners, YN means young nigga, because I think they just assume that you knew that. But yeah, I get it. So I wanted to give you guys, I think one of the things that happens, and it was funny because my stepdad was just kind of breaking down some of this to me. He gave me an example of Lake Lanier in Georgia that got flooded and, was a black community, got flooded, then the government took the land and it got dispersed. And what usually happens is some kind of violence or some kind of thing pulls the black community out when they start getting on their feet, and then it gets gentrified later into the white. And I think what starts to happen is learned helplessness. And they actually found this in animals from a study with dogs, that they would shock and then give food, and then shock and then not give food, and how much they would try to get away from the shock. And some of them, even when they removed the shock, didn't know how to leave wherever they were at to get away from the pain. And it's kind of like they learned that they were helpless. So what was the point? And I think some of that starts to happen with some of our, minorities, black, brown, and a lot of minorities, bro. Like, look at Hawaii, man. How many, large white families live in nice houses? That was a Hawaiian island. So I think what starts to happen is these young cats start coming up in a society, in a system where, look at, the 13th Amendment, I think, allows slavery to happen in, our jails and prisons. So you have a large, jailing population for minor infractions like marijuana and small stuff, get sent to jail, now got to work basically cotton plantations to make money because those jails are privatized. And it's hard to explain to these young cats that this is a plan that they have for you, because I think when you're coming up, you don't really think there's an agenda to get you. And then they start coming up in these communities where there's not a lot of options. They feel like, if I'm not an athlete or I'm not an actor or rapper, what am I going to do? I think it's sometimes a feeling because the regular route doesn't work for me. And then that turns into learned helplessness of, what do I have to lose anyway? I've met a lot of young cats that are 18, 19, and 20, 21 that just, they're like, what do I have to lose anyway? And it goes back to some of the parts of the brain at that age. Even I look back at some of the decisions I made in my early 20s was stupid, but your brain isn't fully formed to understand the long-term impacts of what you're doing. They're not thinking about 30 and 40, because us as humans really aren't thinking about 30 and 40 at that age. So it would be easy to say, man, these cats are young pieces of shit. But if I was raised in the same place with the same kind of outlook and the same kind of background, it would be odds that I'd probably be the same way too. So I think it's really a double-edged sword. Thank God, I think things are changing slowly. But if you look at things in the culture, I think one of the biggest things that really pushed us forward, which thank God, is us getting really successful in sports, pushed us forward as far as, more income, but also more seeing people that look like us. Then it started happening more in music, with the Michael Jacksons and the R&B and the rap. And now if you even see it right now, you've got Bad Bunny headlining the Super Bowl, which a lot of people are mad about, that speaks only Spanish in his music. So you've got Spanish speaking at the biggest event in the country, arguably the world at one time. That's never happened before, right? You even got Charlie Kirk's wife really upset about it, starting her own halftime show, which is interesting in the timing. Maybe should be grieving a little bit more, but that's another subject. But it is showing the culture is changing, which then that change takes time for a young person to see somebody speaking Spanish only getting to get that level of impact. They're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 right now. That person growing up into their 20s and 30s and doing whatever it is, and that level of impact takes some time. So I think we are seeing a change. But again, change takes time. It takes generations for us to see this difference So it's a tough subject and it's sad, but I do see things are not staying the same. At least I believe they are shifting better.
Did you want to add something to his comments, Stephen?
I just think, you know, growing up, when we were in San Diego, how many people we know sold weed when we were in high school?
A good
Every,
amount, actually.
right?
Instead of going to McDonald's, everybody just sold weed. I'm like,
Yeah, right,
who's
right.
buying it if everybody's selling it?
And how many of those people got busted and went to jail for selling weed? Now,
Not many.
just imagine, right? Just imagine if weed was legalized when we were going through high school. All those people that we know were selling weed. I know a couple people got busted. You know what I'm saying? And they went to, you had to do jail time because it wasn't, decriminalized or anything. Just think about the entrepreneurship of some of the people that we know. And I still know people that have make it booming now in the California weed culture, right? And I think there's a lot of people that have entrepreneurial things and they have dreams and they have stuff, but there's just no outlet for them, right? There's no outlet for inner city kids to really find stuff unless there's programs like the STEM stuff and they open those they're like the community co-ops, right? Where you can go in and you have your own, you can rent like little spaces so you can have a business area. So if you have to do meetings and stuff, and you can't afford stuff. And I also think that the issue isn't always just, we're I always hate trying to blame kids. Like we just literally did an episode on parenting and raising kids and stuff, and then trying to blame the kids for their outlets. And I'm not saying that, obviously your parents can't tell you to do or make you, whether we're talking about gangs and all this other stuff, right? It's just like Aubrey said, it's just the environment they're growing up in. And if everyone around you, like all your friends and stuff, are in a gang, what are you going to probably do? Join a gang, right? And if all your friends are just, robbing and stealing and scamming and doing these things to get money, and you look at them and you're like, oh man, they got nice shoes and clothes and cars and stuff. What are you going to probably do if there's no out? Are you going to go work $7.25, $10 an hour, or are you going to try to get this quick cash? And I think as a culture, we have glorified gangsters and all these different things that I think might, when it comes to music, I think Black people's music is so dynamic. It's created so many things, from blues, country, all the rock and roll, all these things that we have our fingerprints on as American, right? There's a lot of American things that are really derived from the Black culture. So we allow our culture to be taking and looked at this as a certain way of like American culture when it's truly Black culture, but we don't ever bring that back. We don't ever capitalize on what our culture is, but we allow so many others to tell us what our culture should be. And I think while I'm happy that people are being able to be, sports players and rappers and stuff, you know what? Little Black kids could be anything they want to be. They don't have to be that. They could be attorneys. They could be doctors. They could be welders. They could be pilots. They could be boat captains. They could do whatever it is they want to do. But for some reason in our culture, that money, right? And I think one group of people that I always loved is the Black Panthers, because one, they were so pro-Black about protecting Black communities and Black businesses and raising Black children to be educated and striving to be better. But they also took a big role in community and starting, lunch programs, breakfast programs, walking children to school. They're the ones that started the neighborhood watch. They were the one policing the police. They had their little California penal codes out, and they were watching police do traffic stops in their community to stop the police brutality. The reason they passed gun restrictions in California, I think, who was it? Was it Richard Nixon? Who was the actor that was the president that wanted to be the president? But Reagan, right? The reason that they stopped gun control laws in California is because the Black Panthers showed up in Sacramento strapped up. And they were like, we can't have these black people holding guns like this, like we do. So it's funny we always pick and choose these things, but I always just think that when we have great examples, those examples are always murked. Every strong black leader we've ever had to try to show us the way on how to get our freedom and how to be successful within the community, it wasn't black people that killed those people. You know, like maybe they might have hired them, right? Like they got the Nation of Islam to kill Malcolm X, but that was the CIA. So you have to realize that the reason that black people are actually in a lower part now has nothing really to do with like the crack cocaine. Where did black people get crack cocaine? The CIA flew it in. You know what I mean? Like we see these things or we know these things that we see, but we don't understand them until later on in life, how that impacts a society by throwing millions of black men in prison. There are more black people under probation right now, being surveilled by the state under probation, than all the slaves at the highest point in American history.
So I guess so. The problem that I have with individuals, like I said, the conservative movements, when they talk about these topics, is like I said, they don't deep dive. And so I appreciate you guys deep diving into that. So as you guys are talking and I'm listening, I'm like, okay, so I made my statement. They responded to it. So ultimately, people are looking at it like, okay, well, Sirod, you think they're pieces of shit? You think they should be doing better? Well, then how? And that's really all I care about. Unfortunately, every time you go back to Reagan, or well, that's not that long ago. It is kind of long ago. We're old as shit. Damn, Reagan is a long time ago. But every time we go backwards, I just think like, but what about today? We do have billionaires, millionaires in our country that were poor. Because like I said, I don't want to just exclude it to black people. I'm talking the poor people in this country as well. Why can't we be more prosperous? I think I saw a stat yesterday that said Canadians, it says an average American is richer than a Canadian, but we're actually not. Because if you actually take the median, we're like down the list, like 17. Because our richest of the rich is the rich, but the rest of us are, you take Elon Musk, he's got half a trillion. So yeah, he's gonna skew our numbers for our averages. So what I'm looking at is to the why. Another stat was the family. That was really important. I know again, Charlie Kirk talked about it. You guys eloquently explain why those things are happening because whether it was the drug movement and the incarceration movement and all those things, again, those things contributed to it. But I'm not I don't want to say catacorn. I'm not close to those communities right now. But the people who are some of the same people that I keep hearing still giving excuses. And I'm like, we have to shut the fuck up and start a movement because I guarantee you they can't treat the 2025 black, brown, and poor community the way they treated them before. They're literally they did what they did, and now we're just letting it marinate. So when you said Aubrey that it takes time, I'm like, it does, and I want to be patient, but I just see that it could move faster if more people spoke out in a more aggressive manner. So for instance, you're talking about the gangs or the drugs and this, that, and the other. If my son comes home and he's a part of any of that, you better believe that the censorship y'all are talking about with not saying nigga and cursing too much so we can possibly monetize is going to be 10 times worse if my son comes home with any of that. So why don't we do it for these YNs? Why is it always kind of coddled in those conversations when one, they don't respond to that shit anyways. I mean, these some of the hardest cats in our community, who have to be tough at a young age because of this environment. So why are we saying like, well, it's gonna take time and the Black Panthers and like they don't even respond to that anyways. Why don't we have more people in the community? And we know LeBron and Russell Westbrook and Nipsey and a lot of people, the celebrities mostly. I don't know about the private sector. I only know about what the media tells me who gives back. But I know there's a lot of people who give back to these young people, spend their time, and probably give them ties, suits, and all that, and they probably just toss it to the side. But why don't we have more people louder and more aggressive? Because every time I hear this conversation, it's so mellow. And I'm like, you know what? Then you guys are exactly right. It's going to take a long time if we keep talking like sorry, we're going to keep it real. Like there are a bunch of little girls out there doing this shit. They're fucking men. And they had to become men at 14, 15, 16. You know why I know they had to become men? Because they had to kill somebody to be down with some of their homies. They have to be put in situations where they have to have 2, 3 guns on them just to go to the mall. These are fucking men, rough men. You know what I'm saying? But yet when we talk about the conversation, it's like, and I'm like, No, tell him you're a piece of shit. Put that fucking gun away, or you're gonna end up dead. Why don't we have more of a community push to that type of push so that we can help these young people faster?
So when you use the direct joint, you know, the direct joint, especially with males, it's kind of like judo. I don't know if you remember, you probably do, right? We're in La Mirage, and me and Sean are wrestling, right? He was like, "Yo, let's wrestle." So it was heated, like there was a little tension in the room, and we go up against each other, and it's like almost like when you push and push, and there's two forces right up against each other. Force against force doesn't work. And I remember it was like a voice in my head said, "Go the opposite way." And all I did was I moved and let him, and he popped right past me, almost bust his face on the mirror, and it was done. Because with force and force doesn't work. It's like judo. You don't get force with force. You let force go. And it's kind of like with young males, they're looking for something to push against. They're looking for somebody to come at them like that because that's exactly who they want to be mad at. Because half the time they don't even have a father figure to go against. So they're looking for that person
So you
to
said
be able to push
push,
them.
you said push, but then at some point in that pushing, you use his momentum. There's no pushing. If you think there's pushing, then
No,
there's
but
something I'm
what I'm
missing.
saying is you're like, why don't we push? And the pushing usually doesn't work. It only makes the issue harder. So that's what I'm saying. You're like, why don't we push? Because the pushing doesn't work from an outside random person. It doesn't somebody that has rapport with these young cats. So the biggest thing that I've seen is if I go in there and just say, why the hell are y'all doing this? Y'all are fucking up. This is this and that. It's defensive. It's push against push. It doesn't work. The reason why they get inspired by the rapper, the actor, the person balling is because that inspires them into what they can be. And then from there, it's like you take them, and then there you can switch it to this is what it takes to get there. Now, what we got to figure out is how to continue to show them that there's other avenues to do that. Now, that's one thing I even told y'all I was thinking about. Like, as I get my money right and I have more
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking about how can I go over into those communities to
Sure.
give that time and maybe coach some sports or do something so they can see a different person that I'm not a rapper, I'm not an athlete, I'm not, but I am, doing well, which inspires. I'm a family man, which can show them an example of, a father and all that stuff. But I've got to figure it out myself. But one of the biggest hurdles I think is people don't have the time. People don't have the time to work, come home and be that parent for their kids. And then after that, go worry about some other kids because people are strapped right now. So it is a big dilemma. Whereas maybe a generation or so ago, when the times weren't as tight, they had a little bit of extra time to be there in the community and kind of talk to some other kids and be that extra parent of the community. I like they say it does take a community to raise a kid. It can't just be one. People are so strapped with time, they have barely enough time to raise their own kids to be able to get to these extra kids. So it's something I've even been thinking about, like, how can I be that outside of there because it's needed.
You know, and Pep, you said it yourself, these kids are like 13, 14, 15, and 16, and we're looking at them as grown ass men. They're not. They're still kids. Whether they do bad shit or good shit, they're still kids at the end of the day. And if
Mhm.
you're doing that, that means there's just a lack of direction. And the problem is, and I think we touch on this all the time when we talk about a lot of the economic factors that happen in this country. Well, the two communities that are hit probably the most hardest on all these economic things, while it's bad for some people, Black and Native American people. Those are the two communities that are always underrepresented and have a bigger burden when it comes to some of this economic stuff that happens, right? And I think when we're looking at what we can do, right? Why do we never ask Elon Musk and all these billionaires to pay more money to help our education system out? And this isn't just for Black people. I'm talking about as a society, right? You just said the numbers of what it is and what it is. But then when we say, hey, how about you guys just start paying more stuff, right? You guys get all these tax breaks, you get
But
all
that's
this,
why this question revolves around this circle, because we already know they don't care. They don't
right?
care about the poor people in Arkansas. They don't care about the thugs and homies in fucking, New Orleans.
Right. But yet those are the people that are also complaining about the crime and all these other places that they don't fucking live. Right? You think Elon Musk is worrying about some Black kid in the south side of Chicago? When's the last time Elon Musk has visited the south side of Chicago? He's from apartheid Africa, South Africa. You don't think that matters in his understanding of what Black people are internationally when he comes here, we allow, and this is why I always think this conversation is funny, because when I go out and I'm talking to people, when I see black people in North Dakota, I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm always quick to just say, hey, how you doing? Or say a quick joke and just, boom, 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 boom. But at the same time, I have tons of other people that are cool too. Like I have white people come up to me and just start talking to me, which always takes me by surprise, right? Like as a black person, it takes me, but I always welcome it because I know if a person is truly racist, they ain't gonna talk to me, right? Like if you talking to me, that means you trying to let me know you cool, right? And I think when we get these young kids, just need one, they need love, right? Right. I definitely think when we just talked about the parenting and we just talked about our childhoods, like, did I ever question whether my parents loved me? When
Yeah,
I got
kicking
my
the
ass
bucket.
whooped, I did. Like, like, I got my ass whooped, and I was like, "Damn! Like, is this love, or do you hate me?" Right? And I think in the black community, we can be so cold to individualism that we're not open and warm to community, right? When people are asking you to do stuff, we're so used to there always being some type of catch. There's always some type of game where, you're not trying to just give me free game, bro. What do you really want, right? Like, ain't no one out here ever tried to just give me love, empathy, listen to my problems and all this stuff. I'm not used to that, right? And we also have to talk about mental health. What are these kids seeing out there in these streets? They're seeing death. They're seeing murder. They're seeing, little kids having babies. They're seeing all this crazy, fucked up shit. And we expect them just to shut that all off, go about your day, go to school hungry and still get good grades, not know where you're going to sleep at night, but still be an upright citizen and not go to the streets because there's money there to help your family. Like, this is what the world is for them. It's not everywhere, but for a lot of people, that's what the world is. So you can only be as much as part of the world that you know. A lot of these kids don't know what it's like to go past high school. They don't make it there. They're in jail. They're getting, just think about how we look at when these kids commit crime. When we see young black kids commit crime, oh man, look at this guy. Oh, look, he's so big, man. That's a big guy, man. Like, there's no way he's 14, man. That looks like a grown man with a hoodie on and a gun. But then you see these little white kids, they do some heinous crimes too. And they're like, well, he came from a good family. His parents were professionals. Why? What kind of mental thing was he dealing with, right? But they don't ever allow the black kids to have mental health struggles, which I think we all do. I think it's a silent part of the black community, that mental health struggles, right? Seeing parents in domestic violence, right? And that's not just in a black community. What we're talking about is stuff that affects every community. But for some reason, on some of the things I said, it affects the black community more. And it's okay that that happens, but we need more outreach. Those programs that are being cut right now, while it hurts for a lot of communities, sometimes for the minority communities and the poor communities, that's all they have. There is no other avenue to get any other, like, cutting the food bank. If kids are going to school hungry and they don't have food in their house and their parents are out and you don't know what's going on, what do you expect them to do? Any living being is just going to try to survive. And you're going to try to survive by any means possible. That's just life. No one's just going to roll over and die under an overpass because life is hard. They're going to keep trying to fight until they have no fight left in them. And so I think when we're talking about these kids, we got to meet these kids where they're at. We do need more outreach. We need more people. We need more capital, for one, because it costs money to educate and train and have all the health stuff and mental health services that you need. But you also need, like Aubrey said, time. People have to give their time to go in there and care about and actually understand that these kids ain't perfect. They're gonna keep fucking up. But do we just throw our hands up and say, you know what? Just let the prison system take you? Like, that's where we want our community and our kids to go, is, you know what? You break the law, you go to prison, you should be there the rest of your life. You shouldn't be able to come back and remake yourself.
I think that's what I feel, right? That's why I told Aubrey before we started. I said, hey, this literally, like, my blood's boiling. I feel like everybody's just throwing up their hands. Again, different approaches, different ways. I mean, if you think more of a judo approach is better, that's cool, right? I know people as a cop, as a brother, as a dad. Kicking the ass can be effective as well. But I'm not necessarily saying like which one is better. I'm saying like I feel like everybody in our community just threw up their hands because the only thing I see on and again, a lot of my stuff comes from either the news or social media or again the few anecdotes that I have, but it just seems like everybody just it's just a pass. It's just, you good. Slavery, bam. Black Panthers were killed off. Malcolm X was killed. Boom, pass. I'm like, damn, we just throwing in the towel. Like, where's the aggressiveness? Where's the anger? Again, I'm just one person, and if I was financial in this situation, I would hope that I would put my money where my mouth is and my time where my energy is, and take my son out there with me and say, yo, we're gonna pull up to Southeast San Diego. We're gonna start a soccer league, just a free one, or basketball, whatever we're gonna do to get people, from thinking about some of the shitty stuff that's going on around them, maybe some of the shitty stuff that's going on in their home. And I just feel like, I mean, Stephen, you hit it on the money. I feel like everybody's kind of threw up the towel. I don't see it as this like, this unsolvable situation. I mean, we just need to put in the time and effort, but instead of doing that, everybody just kind of sits back and goes, it ain't my problem. And I'm like, damn, it just makes us look bad. I think one of the examples that popped in my head, because I was thinking, like, I mean, again, I wouldn't let my son go to a party in certain neighborhoods that are again, you can say poor or but minority. I want to focus on black people. But you see these videos where cats is the baby's a good one. They rode up on him when he was doing that video, right? And it was like, yo, did you tap in? Yo, you check in? And it's hilarious because the comments are 100% right. They're like, does anybody even own any of the houses on that street? But yet you're coming at somebody who's actually promoting your neighborhood, and y'all like 20 deep, surrounding them like y'all want to beat his ass. I'm like, this is what the black community is pushing out there, and I'm like, how come we're not like protesting that shit like every single day, every single weekend? Because when George Floyd gets into some shit, all of a sudden everybody's up in arms, and I'm like, why does it take something so tragic to finally get up in arms when these little pokes at the community are constantly happening? And it's 2025. We have so many resources, so many avenues of redress to step in on these things. So yeah, it just pisses me off. And like I said, I'm a kick in the ass person, and I just wish somebody would start that movement. And I donate money to it every month. And they were like, we're gonna get a group of
Yes.
like-minded people, and we're gonna go out there. I'd be like, yes, like let's just put money. But I ain't waiting for Elon Musk to do it. I'm not waiting for them to help me. And I think that's the problem too. It's like nobody's gonna come help us. We have to help ourselves and
Yeah,
get
but I'm
angry.
not asking for him to help. I'm telling you, I want my legislatures to legislate the fact that rich people should pay more taxes
They
to
don't care though either. They don't. We
that's
know that though.
but see,
So this whole conversation stems
but,
on what
but
we
what I'm saying,
already know.
you're saying be aggressive, right? You're saying be aggressive. Your legislature works for you. Why can't we be aggressive, just as aggressive as we are in our community and pointing out these people? Why can't we be just as aggressive with people that actually are in positions of power to force them to make our lives better by funding what we want funded? I don't see what any
Well,
problem.
let's look at the black vote stat. I mean, why would they care if they can't even get enough black people to care about that? So yeah, again, we're probably saying the same thing. Let's get angry at anything: legislation, involvement, community, police, anything. But I just feel like I just see a bunch of like towels thrown in the air.
I think one of the things is like we've got to take responsibility, like you said, and this is just humans in general. Like once we go from scarcity to making it okay in life, we've got to keep going to get to abundance, to then be able to have the tools, the opportunity, and the resources to be able to give back. And I think a lot of people stop at that. I'm okay enough. I've made it.
Mm.
So everybody should be cool. Where it's like we've got to keep going on that to overflow to be able to go back, go and give time, go and give resources, go and give, that one-on-one or that group kind of thing in person, because it's easy to just make it out yourself, right? Sometimes I think about where I grew up to where I am now, there is a feeling of, damn, I made it out. And almost sometimes a feeling of guilt. They call it survivorship guilt. Like, damn, there were some people that didn't make it, but is it just enough for me to get out? No, it's not. Yeah, I can try to be an example because I can be like, hey, I'm a person of color that did this and this and that. And I think we need some of those too, because I look at, sometimes I'm like, why doesn't Michael Jordan do more? Why doesn't, this person did. But the thing is, in the fact of it, they did do a lot because of their example gave people hope and vision and inspiration. That's why personally I do like Obama, because he gave people inspiration of a family man, a father, a political man, and no like sexual scandals, which we can't say about a lot of high rolling people. So that's why I think that's important. But then I got to bring that back to me and say, okay, well, what am I willing to do? I've got to use that juice to get to abundance. And then I've got to use that juice once I'm at abundance, because a lot of people do that. They make it into their cushy house. They make it into their cool money. And then they sit at the house and they type on their Facebook and their Instagram like, man, these damn little young cats. And it's like, instead of just using that energy to say, well, y'all figure it out, bootstrap it like I did, that's where we've got to take the opportunity and the effort and the energy to continue that effort and our 40s, 50s, and 60s to go back, to give that, where it would be so easy to not do none of it and sit in our house and just chill that we work so hard to get to. I get that. So I think that's where I get what you're saying. So you're like, well, if this is how it is, what are we going to do? And that's, I think, at the end of the day, comes back to that one-on-one conversation. Well, what am I willing to do? Instead
It's
of
no knock on the education, but I don't see enough of what are we going to do? We already know the Kirks of the world. That's what he focused on. I'm like, damn, I don't even see my people talking about what we need to do next. Because once you start that conversation, I believe it would slowly trickle into actually doing it. That's my opinion.
I think sometimes we think we need all this money to do things. And I'm not saying that we do, right? I think obviously taxing rich people would help that. But this is the thing. Fred Hampton had one of the most successful movements in the history of this country. And he was poor. And he got together the black community. He went into churches and everyone and got the black community. He went to the Hispanic community and they went out there and talked to everyone. He even went to the white community and rallied them. The reason they killed him was he was rallying poor people together under one banner through a way of community. He was going to community outreach. He was showing up to white churches. He was showing up to different places within the city to talk to people, to let them know, hey. They are dividing us based on our race and everything, putting us against each other like we're enemies. We're all living in the same spot. We're all, a poor white person in the trailer is no different than a poor black person in the projects. Yeah, you might have a trailer and you might think you own it. You don't own the land. That's the main thing. If you live in the projects and you live in a trailer, you don't own the land most of the time. You have your trailer on a rented piece of land that if you don't pay your monthly lot tax, they're picking your trailer off and putting it outside. Good luck trying to move it to another trailer park. It ain't happening, right? 99% of mobile homes are not mobile. That's the crazy part about that. But that's no different than a black person living in the projects. The only difference is you could possibly sell your trailer, but that just depreciates faster than a car, right? And so I'm just saying that once we get together, right? And I'm not saying that the black community doesn't have issues and that we all have issues that we have to work for. I'm just saying community, and that is what was so strong with black people back in the day. In like Jim Crow South, right? Even during slavery, just the community amongst slaves and how they were able to overcome slavery and get out, and then being able to get freedom and then bonding together and get all the way through Jim Crow, right? Even do separate but equal. Black kids were still educated and highly educated, even though they had less material to work with, less books, good schools, like building schools, right? And once we have kind of, like Aubrey said, we've all gone and went our own ways and we all try to be the make it out story, right? But we never give a hand back. That's what the older community used to do. Even though they made it up, they were always looking to bring someone else up or bring people so they could someone told me once that we all are just standing on the shoulder of giants, right? And I'm here and able to be a black attorney here in North Dakota because somebody in the black community before me was able to break through that glass ceiling and then made it possible for anyone else to see that black people can be an attorney. And I love that. And I love the fact that I can get to where I'm at, but I'm not happy with just me being there. I want the whole team to come. Like whoever wants to be successful and come, I'm willing to sit there, and I think anyone could attest to this. If you hit my phone and ask me for advice on how to do something or move, I will take time out of my day 1,000% to always try to kick game to someone to help them out. Try to give them little nuggets on, hey, people used to hit me up. How do I get into law school? I'll break it all down for you. I'll take an hour out of my day to break it down for you. I think one of the biggest issues we have in the Black community is not reaching out for help. We suffer in silence, and we think, you know what, I don't want to tell anybody else how I'm doing, or that I'm not up to, I'm not at their level, or I'm not feeling like, I'm broke or whatever. And so I don't want to put that on me. But it's like, bro, we've all been broke. Like I've been a janitor, working from 10 to 3 in the morning, cleaning toilets and shit. Like, no one wants to do it, but that's what you got to do. But you know what? If you just ask for help, people are more likely to help you by asking than to just sitting there and just not. No one's going to ever try to help you more in life than yourself. So I think one thing we always have to do is, one, always remember that community is what brought Black people to where we are now, and keep us successful and keep us thriving, even though there might be issues. Community has always been a Black thing. Barbecues. We always joke about barbecues. Community barbecues is a thing, right? Everyone will pull up on barbecues. All the homies, all the families, you get together and everyone joking and shit. That's what it was. So I think we got to get back to community, and it doesn't take money to have community. You can just go out and talk to people. That ain't nothing to do. And I think the other thing we just have to do is ask for help. You're not the only one struggling. And while you see all these other people online and doing in the media, doing all their stuff, that ain't real life, right? That ain't everybody living like that. And it's okay. Just ask for help. If you want knowledge, you have to seek knowledge. That's what I've learned of getting great in wisdom. I'm never afraid to ask for help, because that help may unlock potential in me that I didn't even know I had until I received the help. So asking for help in community is probably two of the biggest things the Black community could do right now to just be better in helping the next generation become successful and get into positions of power to help give the hand back and bring more Black people up.
And as you're saying that, I think one of the things that I'm hearing is like, we've also got to be aware of how this generation is now and work smart. To be honest, in my heart of hearts, I don't think the whole community feeling is coming back. Like neighborhood block parties and barbecues with all, I don't think that's coming back. People stay in their house and look at a screen all day. Now we can be mad about that, or we can be like, okay, if that is what it is, then what are we going to do? And I think if we want to be the most effective, I think we've got to learn how to use what is already being effective, which tends to be social media and content. And how can we use that to make a positive impact? Like just some of the things that are coming up for me, like maybe could I make some videos on different career paths that people could take that maybe they don't even know about, because Black and brown people tend to come up and think about sports, actor, actress, songs. Okay, did they know that, being a pilot can earn $150,000 a year? How do you do that? Well, you go to high school, then you get a GED, or then you get a, maybe an AA and go to flight school. They maybe not. How much is flight school? Here's some scholarships. Did they know that plumbers can earn $150,000 to $300,000? How do you get a plumber certification? All you got to have is your GED, and then here's how you that's like, we could say this is how it should be. Man, we should all get back like the Black Panthers and have the community. I just don't think that's going to happen. Not because Black people or brown people don't want it to happen. I just don't think that's how our communities roll anymore. The touch points are so much less. But make a viral video that gets 13,000 likes and 20,000 shares on some of this stuff that could maybe give value slipped in with some entertainment. Okay, well, maybe I could do that. So this 14-year-old could be like, damn, I didn't know plumbers make 300,000. I think in high school, we had a career day. I did go to Beverly Hills, so I was blessed in that. My father worked at Fox Studios, and that's kind of how he got me in. I had career day. Chiropractor came in, and one of the first questions we asked, I was like, how much you make? He said 300,000. I said, a chiropractor making 300,000, right? Opened up my eyes. I didn't even know what a chiropractor was. They help adjust your back. So I think maybe that was a little bit of back in my head why I thought maybe physical therapy could work out for me later in my life. Physical therapy and chiropractic are not that different, right? So there's that exposure. How could we use this current platform called social media technology, which is growing crazy, to give those exposures that could later lead from the seed to the oak tree? I think that's what I'm hearing.
And I just want to say, just real quick, that when I talk about community, and while I'm talking about, oh, we have to bring community into 2025. So I agree with you. Like online communities are a big thing, right? Video game communities are a big. There's different ways and avenues to make communities that aren't just like, block parties and stuff. Because I agree with you. Do I think block parties and all that are probably coming back? No, they're not. But that doesn't mean we can't reshape what community means in 2025. Because at the end of the day, we all are just craving interaction, right? I think that's what COVID has shown us is even though we like to be alone, when you are forced to not be able to interact when you want to interact, that is it. That connection with somebody else is an important part of life. Whether it's like a whole big community or just a couple people, you still want some interaction with some type of person other than just you in your thoughts.
Yeah, after George Floyd, the Facebook page, I think I do remember it now. It's called Blackout something. Shit, I still can't remember. It was like Blackout something. And the whole point of the page was after George Floyd, this guy, he was in a fraternity in the South and he started a page, maybe like 25, 27 or something. And he was like, yo, we're gonna black out July. I think George Floyd happened whenever, and he was like, August 5th or July 10th, we're just not gonna spend no money outside of the black community. That was the page. And it got to like 2 million people like overnight. So that community right there was like, it was dope. And like I said, turned into a lot of bullshit and a lot of drama, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that because there was a lot of positivity in there as well. And then he started monetizing it, and then he turned into some like Christian page. He started telling people, "Well, if you don't love Jesus, get out of here." And I'm like, what a waste of a fucking 2 million people. Not all black, but it was like 90% black with a few little sprinkles there. What I would say is, I don't know, and this is going to be my last thought. I don't know anybody who can literally say the reason I'm not XYZ is because of racism, because I was going for a job and this guy was racist and that's why I didn't get it, or etc. So, like I said, I just see that get thrown around so much, and it comes off as just this universal excuse that I don't actually know anybody that actually has said that to me in my anecdotes or even online. I've never seen somebody say that. Like, man, I was gonna do that. Like, yeah, your house got appraised less. Your interview was shorter. Like, but again, we know these things, so you have to plan for that. It sucks. It sucks. But again, the whole world, there's a racist in Asia to other Asians. Like, it's just shit you have to deal with. So that's why I said to use it as an excuse to me is just like ignoring the fact that you know a fact, work within that fact. Again, if you're gay in Mississippi, you might run into some shit. It's a fact. Like, you just don't act surprised when the shit happens. So that's one of my final thoughts. And then the second is, yeah, again, I do want to include the zero excuses, and that's just my theme, right? It's how I want to raise my family. It just hit me one day, and it's just literally like, whether you're poor in this country, or in an impoverished brown, black, or Asian or whatever community, if you're Middle Eastern in this country and everybody's looking at you crazy, just understand that there's gonna be things that impede you from doing, some things. But for the most part, at least in 2025, from my perspective, there's a lot you can do that people cannot stop you from doing. And that's why I want to say the Middle Eastern dude is a billionaire who runs XYZ company. The South African runs Tesla and PayPal. I mean, it's the Magic Johnson owns like 3 sports teams. So to me, it's just like we need more minorities who own sports teams. But the zero excuse mentality, we're probably going to keep hearing it as long as we keep doing episodes, because I feel like it really comes back around, whether it's parenting or job search or growth or anything. It's like if you get the excuses out of your head, you're going to have poor people, you're going to have people on drugs, you're going to have drug dealers. I'm not saying we have to eradicate all of it, but I just fucking hate all the excuses. And I hate that as a black person, when you look at the statistics for minorities or for everybody in this country, black people are at the bottom of everything. So to keep hearing excuses for everything and being at the bottom and then still hearing excuses, it just pisses me off. And that's why I wanted to bring this topic up, let you guys get your opinions out. I need to just get that off my chest because, again, I don't comment a lot on social media. So I read it and then I just get angry. And I got a podcast. So I was like, well, I'll just say it here. So that's my final thought. You guys?
You know, my thing is I agree, right? Like racism exists. Uh, you're gonna face it. It's as American as apple pie, right? And I think the one thing that has made me successful, right, is when I was in my younger days, racism would just make me mad and angry. And sometimes that anger is to the detriment of self. And it was to the detriment of myself. Because if you go and you just knock out everyone that calls you the N word, the only person that's going to suffer is you by being locked up. And so while there are excuses for why black people are in the situation and always at the bottom rung in most places, in North Dakota, it's Native Americans. Like that's who's on the bottom rung here because of the reservation system and everything. Like what they say about black people everywhere else is now flipped here and they just put Native American instead of black. Okay. So just know when I talk about the media stuff and the propaganda, that's how I know it because I'm in a state where black people aren't at the bottom. It's Native Americans, which now I see, right? When you're always at the bottom and then you're no longer you see what they're trying to do. But I would say that let that fuel you to get to the places that you want to be. That's what fueled me. People telling me I can't or I won't or I can't or shouldn't or whatever their thoughts are that, oh, you're not as smart as you won't make it. You don't have the drive. You don't have the grades. You don't have well, guess what? I'm here, right? I'm the guy at Sarah High School that had to get kicked out of school to go across the street to get my grades up to come back to even graduate. And I didn't walk, right? And I went to Mesa College, did some plagiarism, got an F, got kicked out for partying, right? And then I came back to school, did school, and now I'm here. So that just goes to show that where you start in life is not where you're going to end. But once you kill the excuses and realize just what, the one thing I agree with Pep on is get rid of the excuses. Excuses will always hold you back. Doesn't mean that they don't mean why you are where you are. But if you can get rid of those excuses and turn them into a positive drive for yourself to succeed, because that's what I did. I love showing people out here in North Dakota that a black man could be an attorney. I can walk through the gate and why everyone else has to sit back there because they don't have a bar license to sit up here at council table, or they don't have the ability to speak in the courtroom or do these things. I relish that. And I love the fact of putting my community in a positive light everywhere I go. Because it's not just me I carry when I look at it. I'm carrying all the ancestors, every black person in this country. Because if I am a positive representation of my community, then I feel like when people meet people like me, similar to me, because I wear Crenshaw, I'm wearing Marathon everywhere I go. I'm not dressed up as an attorney. You would not know that I'm an attorney in a regular world when you just see me. So I love the fact that I can try to be that positive thing and also try to bring people back. But you have to get rid of the excuses of why things are happening to you and be like, you know what? I'm gonna make things happen for me, regardless of where I'm at or what people feel about me. Because at the end of the day, the only person that matters is you and what you think of yourself. And that's why when I raise my daughters, I'm always being positive about their looks, their appearances, everything. So they don't have any self-conscious thing in their mind saying, "Oh, well, I'm not as good as because I'm, biracial or I'm this or I'm that." No, you can do whatever it is you want to be. If people want to hate, let them hate. You can't hate from outside the club. You got to get in. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it. And and once you get rid of those excuses and use it to drive you and not sometimes to the detriment of yourself, I think that will help you get to where you want to be and be successful.
Nigga ended that beautiful soliloquy with a Chris Brown quote. Good job on that one.
The club mindset somehow slipped back up in there.
And
Hey,
sometimes
from
you gotta
outside the
break the
club, I'm
code.
in the club.
Sometimes the code ain't for everybody. Like what? What? Oh, that's a different conversation.
But so there was this story about aggregate gains growing to something bigger. I used to look at it like, man, why can't cats just get it, man? If all this thing is stacked up against you, and I had to really, and I continue to, if I see somebody in the middle of the road asking for, money and all this stuff, is remember that little things do add up. There was a story of a cycling team where the coach did all the little things, took them from losing year after year to started traveling with their mattress, so they slept on the same mattress, brought their own pillows, dusted the van with the bikes for all dust so it wouldn't get into the cycling wheels, cleaned the brakes every time, worked on their hydration, like all these little things that we wouldn't even think of, colored the whole inside of the van white so they could see if there was any specks of dust in there. They went from losing every time to winning. Tour de France and cycling contest, because it's called marginal aggregate gains. Marginal small, aggregate means they grow together, gains over time. So all those little things do add up, you know. You being told that, you know, people that look like you don't make it to these places, your house not getting appraised for as much, your school's not being as good, right? You not being given exposure to certain careers and pathways because people that think like people like that look like you don't really make it. All those little things do add up. And I feel bad for that. And, you know, I'm the kind of person where I like that kind of underdog mentality. I like to come back because I've just been like that. You know, I used to be a late bloomer. I used to be short. I used to be overweight. So I like to come back from that. And I got in shape and I trained myself and I did all that stuff. But everybody's not like that. And I think one thing that we have to learn is it's okay to get angry. Like if you're black and brown and you're like, damn, yo, get angry because it is not equal. And you got to learn to, and I say learn specifically because it's not something that's always going to happen naturally, is to take that anger into action. Like, don't just sit on it like a hot coal and be like, well, whatever, throw your hands up. Take the anger into action because if you want to be great, right? If you want to be an athlete, if you want to be a rapper, if you want to be an actor, okay, it's going to take a lot of reps. It's going to take a lot of practice. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It's going to take a lot of work. Take that action from that anger to put in the time to get to where you want to go. Because you can take that anger and try to say, well, I'm going to show you. And that sometimes works. I remember doing that. And I'd be like, yo, man, I'm going to just, you know, I don't like this racism stuff. So I just pull all your babes. That was just kind of how I did it, right? Does that really work in the long term? It doesn't get you ahead to where you want to go. It might in the short term, but you got to take that action and say, well, I'm going to push us forward together. And kind of like Stephen talked about, your example does make a difference for other people. When people see people like you make it, it does make an example. And that's one thing I like. I remember, right? I moved to Miami with my wife, who was my, you know, she was my, you know, my wife then and now. And we lived in a building and people would see me because I was one of the few brown people. And I had a feeling they always thought I was an athlete to be there. Like, how could you make it here? I was living on the beach in a high rise. How could you make it here and be working out at 11 a.m. if you're not an athlete? Right? And it would kind of make me angry. Like, what, I can't make it here if I'm not an athlete? But I had to put in the work to be able to build a business to be able to get there. Because one thing we got to realize is no matter whichever pathway you do choose, it's going to take work. People like the actors and the big contracts on athletes. Whatever you choose takes work, baby. Whether you want to be a wide receiver or you want to be a lawyer or you want to be an influencer, whatever, it's going to take a lot of work. So just get that down and be okay with it. Make peace with the work. That's one thing I had to learn. I got to make peace with the path. I got to make peace with the work it's going to take, because even if they judge me or not for how I got there, no matter which one I take to get there, I'm going and it's going to take work. So there's no way around that. So once you make peace with the work, they're going to sit, snicker, and they're going to look at you sideways and they're going to judge. Okay, but one more person there looking like you does tip the scales. Right? You heard Sirod say earlier, majority of his community is probably white. Majority of my community, when I moved in this neighborhood, I think I was one of two, maybe three, black and brown. Now we're about 40%. So we tipping the scales. You got to put in work to tip in the scales. That's the last thing I'm going to leave with you. You got to put in work no matter what. Get angry or not, use the anger for the action because the work's got to be paid, baby.
Yeah, we know it's hard out there. So like we said, man, this podcast always stems from us just trying to give back a little bit. We're not athletes, we're not millionaires, we're not zillionaires, but you know, we cool.
We all
we doing all
becoming
right.
millionaires though. So don't, yeah, we all becoming millionaires. Let's get it.
Let's tip the scale. No, I'm joking. Damn, dog, you broke my train of thought. I had a good ending, dog. I was killing the game, cuz. I was just basically trying to say, like, you know, we're just trying to, for what we know, we're just trying to give back. So again, I really hope that you guys, with all the topics we talk about, are just getting something. And somebody who's maybe struggling, like, man, do I want to keep kind of bullshitting in life or looting or stealing or, you know, whatever? Because I know people who did that shit. And I hope those type of people hear these conversations and go, you know what? Let me change my life. I don't know, probably not overnight, but you know what I'm trying to say. All right, 20 to 40 podcast. Let's wrap this shit up. We already missed an hour of football because they want to talk about babes they stole from white dudes and fucking clubs and shit. So,
I mean,
let's wrap it up. Follow us on social media. We out of here.
Peace.